In this video, we are going to learn how to test macros. We'll set up and test our discount DSL. That's our domain-specific language that we created in the last video using the XUnit testing framework. We'll start by understanding the basic setup for our test script and then move on to testing various aspects of our discount logic. By the end of this video, you'll have a solid grasp of how to effectively test macros and ensure they work correctly with different conditions and inputs. I removed our discount DSL macro and our implementation where we're using the macro and setting up our discounts into its own project. So I'm going to just open our terminal, and I'll make this a little bigger for us today. And I'm going to just cd into the desktop. If you want to know what I did, all I did was say mix new, and then I did discount DSL. And that creates a new Elixir project. And then I just created our files, and I'll show you those in a second. So if we go and cd into this project, and I'll include the source code for this project so you can have the starter project if you don't want to create your own. But we'll walk through it really quick so you know what I did. So I'm going to make this full screen. I'll make the text a little bigger. So let's close this up. So we have our typical project. You'll see our build, where everything gets compiled. And then in our lib directory, this is where I added our discount DSL. This is our macro that we built in the last video. You'll recognize it. I just copied and pasted. And then instead of having everything in one file, I just created a discounts.ex file. And I added that right here. And instead of keeping them Elixir scripts, I made them just EX files, and everything else works the same. So now what we want to do is we want to get into writing tests for our macro. We want to make sure that Jack's just huffed and puffed behind me. We want to make sure our macro is always applying discounts the way we expect it to work. We want the behavior to work exactly the way we want it to, no matter how our rules are applied here, right? So this is a user input using our macro. So first, let's go into our test directory here, and we're going to create a new file, and we're going to call this discount_DSL_test. And now our tests have to be Elixir scripts, so EXS. All right, and then we're going to just create a def module like we have in the past, and it's just going to be called discount DSL test, and then we'll have our, I hate when that does that, we'll have our do end block, and then we want to use the macro xunit.case. So use xunit.case. xunit.case is a module provided by the Elixir standard library, specifically by XUnit testing framework. It is used to define and run test cases. And we're going to use this and focus on just using the test macro from it today. And you'll see what I'm talking about in just a second. The test macro is a DSL, similar to what we created for our discounts. But in this case, we can use the test like this, and then it takes a message where you would name the test. And here we're just going to say ensure the module loads. So we're just making a very simple test here, and then we need to do a do end block, and we're going to use assert today. And what assert does is it just makes sure whatever you're comparing is true. So if you're using assert, as long as it's a true comparison, the test will pass. So if we do assert here, and we're going to just say code.ensure, and you don't have to really know what I'm doing right now, but we're going to do ensure loaded, and we're going to pass in our module, discount DSL. And so as long as this module loads at compile, this will return true and our test will pass. And I'm just doing this as a quick example to get our test set up so you can see it work. So now if we go to our terminal, we can just run mix test, and our test file is going to run. And you can see like running XUnit, awesome. And it finished and we have one test that was successful. So that's really cool. Our macro, our discount DSL macro successfully loaded at compile. And that's all we wanted to show right now. Deciding what needs to be tested is incredibly important because you want to have this list figured out so you know what you're writing tests for. And a lot of people will do like test-driven development when they code, and sometimes, you know, it's a little better to just kind of figure out the simplest way to add tests to your code without overcomplicating things. Because if you overcomplicate things, you're less likely to write tests. And if you obsess over test coverage, sometimes you won't write meaningful tests. So there's like fine line. And I suggest like everyone try test-driven development. Everyone try all these different testing strategies. And you might find that mixing some of them or one works better with your workflow than others. And I usually like to write tests after I write my code. And it's because I like to do what I'm about to do now. We're going to write a list out for every scenario we can think of that we need to test for with our discount DSL, our discount macro, okay? So the first one, and I'm just going to make commented code here. So number one, we need to apply a discount to a product if the condition is met. Okay, so that's very straightforward. And then the same thing, if you remember, if it matches multiple conditions, I want to spell conditions correct here. So if it applies to multiple conditions, we want to make sure multiple discounts are applied in a certain sequence as well. So we want to apply multiple discounts in sequence if multiple conditions are met. And like, this is very simple. You could kind of think of this as like kind of writing pseudocode for your tests. And this is going to help us write our tests shortly. This is how my brain works. This is everything that our macro does, right? So like, if we go back to this, we're applying our discount rule, right? So first we're checking the condition. If the condition passes, then we're applying our action function. If this doesn't pass, we're just returning the product as is. So, and we're looping through this because if you go over here, you can have multiple discounts added in our module that is using our discount macro. So if it's over $100, we give them a 10% discount. And if it's over 50, they get free shipping. So that's already two conditions that pass. So we want to make sure this works. So we want to write tests for that. We want to make sure our multiple discounts are applied. So then we also want to make sure that discounts are not applied if conditions aren't met. So if a condition isn't met, we want to make sure random discounts aren't being applied. So ensure discounts are not applied if conditions are not met. All right. And number 4, I like that the comment looks like I'm writing number 4, but it's just commented, but I like it.
Enjoying the video? Show some love with a like and hit subscribe to stay updated. To support me and keep the content free, click join for memberships or pick up a course at elixirmentor.com and get free access to my private community. Let's jump back in.
We need to handle some edge cases here. So handle edge cases. And so an example of an edge case for us, looking at, so if a price is over $100, we're doing a 10% discount, right? So we're going to want to test what happens. Like, so handle edge cases. If a product is $100, we want to check what happens. So a discount shouldn't be applied because we did greater than. So we want to just check that. That's a likely edge case, right? And 5, we want to make sure invalid inputs are handled gracefully. So let's see. Invalid inputs are handled gracefully. All right, cool. I'm going to just throw a space in there. So we have our list of requirements now, and I think that covers all of them. If I've missed some, obviously let me know, and I want to see what you added, and I want to see your test. So if there's anything I missed, that's your little piece of homework for this one, is to add it and then share it in the Discord Pro channel, because obviously I want to see it. And code review is important, because if you miss things, that's what extra eyes are here for, right? So let's first make sure our single discount can be applied. So we're just going to write a test. So using the test macro, it's test, and then we're going to name our test. We have to name what happens. So this is going to be a single discount is applied correctly. And then we need our do and end block. And here we're going to have to create a product. And so our product is going to be, so our products have names, prices, and categories, right? We don't do anything with the name. So we just have to make sure we have a price, and we'll put $150 here. I take that back. We're going to put, we only want one test to be triggered, right? So we want to make sure single discount is applied. So we're going to make sure, we're going to make our price $60, and the category is going to be toys. All right, cool. We'll capitalize that, because I think we've capitalized things in the past. So we have our product, and our product with price $60 and category toys should only trigger one discount if we look at the discounts we created, because one is if the category is electronics, it's not that. Another one is if it's over $100, well, it's not that, but it is over $50, so we'll get our free shipping. All right, so back to our tests. Now we know what we're testing. So now if we say we want, so now this is where we test our macro. So we say we're going to set a variable to discounted product, and we're going to call our discounts module where we are using our macro, right? And then we can say apply discount. We want to call that, and then we pass in our product. Okay, then we return, we get our product back, and now we can use the assert. So we say assert, and we want to check that our discounted product dot free shipping, because that's what comes back, is equal to true. All right, so I'm going to save this, and when we run this test, we should now get another passing test. So let's pull up our terminal and do mix test. And look at that. Now we have two passing tests, which is really cool. I'm going to just change this to false for a second so we can see a failing test, so you can see what happens. And look at that. So what's really cool with the XUnit case, when an assertion fails, it says, look, our test single discount is applied correctly. So you know what test it is, because that's what we named it right up here. And then it tells you that the left-hand side is true and the right-hand side is false. So it doesn't match. So that's really cool. So now we know where to look, that like, hey, our test failed. So we're going to put it back to true because we know that's what it is. And if we wanted to take this a step further, we want to also do assert discount product dot price. And we want to make sure this is still equal to $60 because that was not changed. And we can also do that with assert discount product dot category and make sure it still equals toys. So save that, and now when we go and run our tests, we're still getting our two passing tests. So that's really cool. So we can actually do 3 asserts in a row. If any of these failed, it would tell us. So if we made that 70 and go back and run our tests, it now tells us that our assertion failed because our price was not, it does not match 70. The left-hand side was 60 and the right-hand side was 70. So you know exactly which assertion failed, which is pretty cool. I think you get a lot of good feedback with XUnit. So there we go. We have our first test written for the macro we created, which is, I think that's pretty dang cool. So now we want to test that, we want to make sure that multiple discounts work. So now we can write a new test down here, and we're going to do this the same way. So we do test, and then we want to name this. So multiple discounts are applied in order. Okay. So that's what that'll be called. And then we have our do end block. I'm going to just return that down because it was bothering me. So now let's create a new product. So if we create a product with a price of $200, and we can also have a category of electronics. Cool. And so what's going to happen here is we're going to have all three of our discounts triggered. It's over $200, it's over $50, and it's electronics. So we have a few things to figure out here. So we want to get our discount, our discounted product, and that is equal. And then we need to just apply our discount. So discounts dot apply discount, and then we pass in our product, and then we're going to get our updated product back. And then we want to do our assertions, our assert tests here. So we're going to say assert discounted product dot price. So now we need to think about this. We're getting a 10% discount and then a 5% discount on that new price. So if we say 200 times 90, so we get 180. And then we get another 5%, right, for electronics. So 180 times 95%. So we're looking for 171. So we want this to equal 171.0. All right, and then we're going to say assert, and then we want to say discounted product dot free shipping, and this should be equal to true as well. And then just for funsies, we'll make sure our category is still the same. So category is still equal to electronics, which that shouldn't change, but we'll just make sure. So now when we run our tests, we should now get 3 passing tests. So that's pretty cool. And see how easy this is? Like, it's so easy for us to write these tests because we already planned out what we're looking for. So we just made sure we had multiple discounts get hit, and they all did. They all worked. And like in this one, only one got hit and it worked. So now we want to make sure that that no discounts are applied if nothing is met, right? So that's pretty easy too. Let's make a new test, and we'll name this one no discounts applied if conditions are not met. Okay. And feel like I like to be as descriptive as possible with these tests. Like, this is kind of good documentation. Like, if someone comes and looks at my macro code, if they want to just see, like, let's say I made a framework that they're going to use, sometimes going straight to the tests is the best way to understand how the code works. So feel free to make these as descriptive as possible, within reason, obviously, but it's something to think about. And you should consider looking at tests when you're trying to figure out a framework that you're learning about. All right, so let's create a product. And this product, the price is going to be $40 because we don't want it to trigger free shipping. So it needs to be less than 50. And then our category will make toys because it just needs to be anything but electronics because that's the only thing we check for. And then we'll do our discounted product here and apply the discount again. So discounts dot apply our discount and pass in our product. All right, and now the assertion tests that we want to do, we want to just do assert. And what's really cool is, well, like with the match operator, we can just say discounted product equals product. So we don't have to individually call every piece if we're comparing the whole map. Okay, so that's pretty handy. So now if we save it and go back to the terminal and let's run our tests, now we have 4 passing tests. So that's really cool. No discounts were applied to our product. So far, all of our cases are being handled properly. So this is really cool, I think. I think it's cool to verify your code. I think writing tests is actually like really fun. It's validating. All right, so now we want to handle edge cases. So if a product is exactly $100, we want to make sure that only one discount gets applied, right? Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah. So let's go ahead and write that. So let's say test checking edge case to make sure no discount is applied if product is $100. I feel like that's not a very good title, but it's okay. So now what we want to do here is we want our product and we want the price to be 100, and then we'll make our category toys again, just so it doesn't trigger. We're already going to trigger the free shipping, and we're just making sure we're not triggering our 10% discount because we're looking for everything greater than 100, not 100, right? So then our discounted product equals discounts dot apply discount and pass in our product. And now we want to just say assert discounted product dot price needs to equal 100, and then assert discounted product dot free shipping needs to equal true. And then just for funsies, we'll make sure the category is the same. Discounted product category equals toys. All right, so save that and let's run our tests. And now we have 5 passing tests. I think we're on a good track here. Good track record. Look at that. 4 out of 4 passing tests, or 5 out of 5 if you count our module loading.